Agers! Let's go! Agers! Agers! Get it! Let's go!
After one of the most intense FNCSs we've ever had, Kanata and Agers came out on top in NA, winning their first ever Grand Finals. But how exactly did they get here? Let's first start off with Kanata, going all the way back to before the World Cup. He started playing very early on, and right away you could see that he definitely had talent for the game. And he would start off his career by posting videos of him absolutely dominating public lobbies. And fun fact, his name back then wasn't even Kanata, but it was actually Man Not Child, even though he was 13. He would continue to post videos, and he was even killing very well-known pros at the time. And eventually, one of the first tournaments came around where you could actually make money in. That would be the Lux Cup. Kanata would do very well, placing 8th, getting him $700 for his first earnings and his second tournament ever. But not long after, the World Cup was here. Unfortunately though, he didn't qual, with his best placement being a 16th in the week 7 of solos. Just a few points off of making it. But he ended up earning almost $3 grand from just the qualifiers, so it was obvious that he had some potential to be great. And not soon after, he would place 4th in the first Trio Cash Cup, making him $2,700. And with the first FNCS coming up, he was confident he would do well. The first few weeks, however, in the qualifiers, he didn't do as well as he hoped. But in the very last week, he would get picked up by the OG Go to Fortnite, Tfue. They would go on to win that final week, making him 20 grand. And since they won, they made it to the heats, where he would get a 3rd place, making it into the first ever FNCS Grand Finals. But unfortunately, they wouldn't do too well, placing 22nd. But going into Chapter 2, it was announced FNCS would now be squads, so his trio needed to find one more teammate. And who better than Tfue's duo Cloaksy. They would do well in the finals, making it to Grands, but again, they didn't perform the best, placing 7th overall. But this was still an improvement from last time. Going into Chapter 2 Season 2, some people's favorite season, he still wouldn't be able to get that placement he wanted. The game mode switched to duos, and he made the finals, but only placed 29th. But this season, Epic also decided to host a solo invitationals event, and throughout his career, he had been extremely dominant in that game mode, getting multiple top 5s in the Cash Cups. After grinding extremely hard, he would make the finals and end up placing 4th, getting him his best placement yet. And with Season 3's FNCS being announced as solos, it was looking good for Kanata. Again, he would do well throughout the qualifiers and make it to the Grands. But he would end up playing the worst he's played in a tournament yet and finish 96th. However, he didn't let this stop him. Going into Season 4, the new game mode would be trios, so he would run it with Bucky and Creo. They would perform extremely well this season, even winning the first qualifier of FNCS. However, they would finish 10th place in Grands. Again, this is not what Kanata wanted, and going into Season 5, him and Bucky would drop Creo for Macwood, and they would soon prove that this trio can work. But then something happens nobody saw coming. In late 2020, Kanata would end up getting permanently banned on Twitch, which was a very big deal since he was pretty big on the platform at the time. And this was also a big hit to one of his main income sources. And it's very important to mention this for the future. But even with this Twitch ban, he didn't let this stop him, and they would actually end up playing extremely well throughout the season leading up to FNCS. And when the day came to play Grands, they did not disappoint, ending day 1 in 4th place, only 30 points behind 1st. So now Kanata was in a spot for the first time in his career to possibly win an FNCS. But within an extremely close last game to decide the winner, they would end up falling down into 3rd place. Even though this wasn't a win, it was still Kanata's best placement so far in the Grand Finals. Going into everyone's favorite season, Primal Season, they were the favorites to win again from their last performance. But this time they would only pull off a 7th place. But the solo FNCS All-Stars was right around the corner, and we've seen how good Kanata is in solos. And he would go on to prove it again, getting a 3rd place. And now in Season 7, he decided to switch up the trio once again. News was starting to go around that the iconic trio of Zayt, Saf, and Stretch were no longer since Zayt had quit the game. So Kanata would actually end up filling in his spot, which is some pretty big shoes to fill. With another solid performance throughout the season, he would make the Grand Finals, but again, they wouldn't pull off the win, getting a 4th place. But going into Season 8 would be a notable moment in Kanata's career. He would once again decide to switch up the trio, and this time he would play with Degen and Agers. So even though he and Agers would dominate down the road, it did not start off that way. They ended up placing 9th in the grand finals, and right after that was the Grand Royale where they would finish 8th. Once again, not the performance they were hoping for, and going into chapter 3, the official game mode would change once again, and this time it would be duos. Instead of playing with Agers again, he would actually play with FNCS winner Acorn. But once again, after a lackluster season placing 6th place, him and Agers would reunite once again, and they would continue to play together from chapter 3 season 2 to now. Let's now go all the way back to see what Agers' story looks like. The first tournament Agers would earn in would be the second week of the World Cup qualifiers, but he actually didn't see as much success as Kanata, only making money in 2 other quals. And during Season X FNCS, he wouldn't even make the heats, and in Chapter 2 Season 1 squads, he would make the heats but miss out on the grands. And going into Season 2, it would be the same, with him making heats but not grands. However, this season was the solo FNCS Invitationals, and making the reboot round, he would win a game, making it into his first ever grand finals. And in the finals, he would only end up placing 86th, but you gotta start somewhere. And going into Season 3 solo FNCS, he would make some big improvements. He would do well throughout the qualifiers and safely get into the grand finals, where he would end up placing 26th this time. And it's important to mention, during this time, he would start playing with Degen, and that would be a duo that would stick around for a pretty long time. Going into Season 4's FNCS, they would pick up Animal, and after getting a 3rd in the heats, they would only pull off an 18th in the grands. But Season 5 was right around the corner, and he would start to make a name for himself. Him and Degen would pull off a 2nd place finish in the DreamHack Online Opens, getting him his first top 3 in a big tournament finals. And for this season, Degen and Agers would drop Animal for Skittles. After dominating the first week of quals in FNCS, they got a 2nd, automatically qualing him for grands. And this time, they would pull off a 6th place, getting him his best FNCS placement yet. And for Season 6, they would do even better. They would this time win the first FNCS qualifiers, again guaranteeing themselves into grands. And another duo DreamHack Cup was coming up right after, and Degen and Agers would win this time. The trio would also go on to win 2 Cash Cups in that time. So going into grands, they were some of the favorites to do well. And this time, he would get his best FNCS placement, once again placing 4th. And right after his best FNCS yet was the solo invitationals, but he didn't do the greatest, placing 29th. Now Season 7 was here, and they would continue to dominate once again, qualifying straight to grands after placing 3rd in the first qualifier. But they slipped up this time, placing 7th, halting the progression closer to 1st. And now that brings us back to Season 8, where he would start to play with Kanata. But if you remember, after Grand Royale in Chapter 3, they actually did not play the first season of duos together, and instead Agers would play with Rise, but they would only end up getting a 16th overall. So now that we're all caught up, this is where their stories come together. Once again for Agers, going into the first qualifier of Chapter 3 Season 2, they would place 2nd, auto-qualling them to the grands, but again they still weren't able to pull off that win, placing 5th. And Season 3 would be an exact replica of the last one, qualifying by placing 2nd in the first qualifiers and then getting a 5th in the finals. And going into the next season, there actually wasn't an FNCS because of the invitationals that was coming up. And since Kanata and Agers didn't have any crazy performances, they actually weren't even going to play. But Kanata ended up getting invited to play with Bleed, a Middle East FNCS winner, after his teammate couldn't go. But then it turned out that Bleed wasn't able to go either, so it left Kanata, who wasn't even supposed to be there in the first place, looking for a teammate. And he would end up playing with Macwood since Agers wasn't on the backup player list. But even with all this happening, long story short, they didn't do the best, placing 22nd. But unfortunately robbing the Middle East of a representative at the invitationals. Going into Chapter 4, it was weird to see that they would stick together considering their past with changing teammates. But obviously in the long run, this was a very good decision. Coming up into FNCS, they would do well throughout the Elite Weekly Cups, and into the FNCS Quals, they would place 1st, 21st, and 7th, once again securing them a spot in the Grand Finals. And with the announcement that at the end of this year, there would be another major LAN event for the top players in FNCS, they would show that they had it in them.
My body dead, no one, no. Play your life, oh my body. No. No. 100. Full box. 100. Dead, killed one, I need help. Nice. Top 3.
After their best performance yet, they would finish second place, not quite calling to Copenhagen, but still it proved to themselves that they were just on the edge of taking home that crown. So going into season 2, they were confident as ever, but some very interesting things ended up happening. In the first week of FNCS, they were unable to make it out of the opens, and things were looking a little bit rough. So they decided to make a big change. If you remember, Clix and Scented were landing at the racetrack this season, a very good drop on the map. But Clix actually ended up getting banned right before the week 2 finals. So Kanata and Agers decided to make a move that could have ruined their entire season. And that was to take the racetrack for themselves. And well, it ended up working in their favor. In the second and third finals week, they would place 6th and 25th, just barely sliding themselves into the grands. And once again, it was looking like their season to win it. But then disaster struck. They would end up getting conned by Giants and Sprite. And in Fortnite, even if you're the best player, it is extremely hard to do well if conned, especially at a drop spot like Racetrack where it's pretty much whoever has the best drop wins. But this same season, we actually saw Thomas HD and Malibuka at the Racetrack pull off an impressive 3rd place while contested. So they proved it's not impossible. But even with only dying off spawn 3 times, they would place 12th, missing out on the win again and the qual to the LAN at the end of this year. But going into season 3, everything would change for the best. Just a few weeks after the new season, Twitch had finally unbanned Khanada after almost 3 whole years. So now one of the best personalities in the Fortnite com was finally back, and he would start to stream everything. And this was actually a blessing in disguise. He would perform extremely well, placing 8th, 4th, and 1st in the FNCS qualifiers, and he had this to say about streaming everything.
I would say like streaming actually makes me play a lot better, because I know that I want to be showing my viewers the best content, which is like getting into endgame, of course. I don't want to be doing anything that will get me eliminated in the game, and I want to make sure that while I'm playing that I show my stream the best side of me, right? And then so far it's looking really good.
So with Kanata making 18 grand finals, making him and Epic Will the only players on A to qual for every FNCS grands, it was time to see if him and Agers could finally pull it off after years of playing. But then a rumor started to go around. Only a few days before the finals, there were whispers that they would once again be contested. And going into FNCS, nobody knew if they were even going to get landed on or not. That's when...
We're on con.
Thankfully for them, they were not contested, so it was time to see what they could do at their full potential.
Run back, run back.
Dead.
Dead.
No, I'm dead. Cops out of that game. Let's go! Agers! Oh my God! Agers! I love you! I fucking love you! Oh my God! Oh my God! Agers! You are the best player! Oh my God! Oh my God, man! I love you! I love you, man! Oh my fucking God! You are the best! My trust. Nice. Let's go, Agers!
Let's go.
Let's go! Oh my fucking God, you're the goat! That's such a good game!
Let's go.
Oh my
Let's
God,
go.
Agers! My boss, 20 feet dead!
I have magic up there.
Let's go!
Let's
I'm
go.
the best,
Let's go.
Agers!
Good shit, good
Agers!
shit.
Oh my
Good
God! Let's go!
Let's go.
Let's go!
After a dominant performance on day 1, they were looking like the ones to take it home, gaining a 91-point lead over second place, who was Booga and Threats. But going into day 2, things would start to fall apart. They would have a very bad first game,
120, 120! 1
They're back.
HP! Okay. Fuck that, man.
That too, yeah, we shouldn't have done that.
Wow.
but in second game they would end up bringing it back.
The top guy.
Yep, he has nothing. They drop! They drop! Get up now!
Yep. Dad killed him.
Nice. I'm dropping now. Let's go! Agers! Agers! Let's go! This is our grand! This is our grand final! I don't give a fuck! I don't give a fuck! Let's go!
Good game, bro.
What did I tell you?
You'd think with a winning game too, it would bring some momentum, but the nerves got the better of them. And they would go on to play some of the worst games they've had all season.
Dropping down to you with stars.
No, I'm 120.
No,
Bro.
man.
Going into the last game, Agers and Kanata were in first by 24 points, with Bugha and Threats in second right on their trail. And that wasn't it. If the third place team, which was Ryzen Iamzo, had a really good game, they could play upset and pull off the win as well. So this was the last chance for everyone to put everything they had on the table. And game 12 would be one of the scariest games for Fortnite viewers.
Healing. My back in zone. What? I should have. Well, here. Hey, look.
Bro.
Oh man.
Dude.
I got headshot pistol in zone.
After Kanata and Agers went down, they thought all hope was lost, and once again they would miss out on the win. But then...
Bugha just died, he just died.
How many point lead do we have? They got 20 point game.
They
We
got
passed
20
them.
point. I think we passed them.
Yeah,
Oh
we
my
did.
God,
We're ahead of them. It's Rise.
Oh my god, bro. We did it! Let's go! Oh my god! Oh my god! We did it, bro! We did it, bro! We did it!
Agers and Khanada, he's pulled it off. The duo come together and they make the impossible happen. This was their major, and for the first time, Kanata and Agers will hold that axe of champions high.
They ended up finally winning, and Kanata streamed the entire thing. But not only did they finally become FNCS winners, they also got their spot for the LAN at the end of this year. And I would say they have a shot at doing really good and maybe winning, but Kanata would say otherwise.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. We're not winning Invitational. It's impossible. It's actually impossible. I will not lie to you. Do you know what I'm saying? So I won't lie to you guys about that. But this is it. Like, this is it. I finally finished everything that was in my cookbook, and I just did everything. I did it all.
After finally checking off everything Kanata wanted to achieve off of his bucket list, it's interesting to see where him and Agers' career will go on from here. But I'm down for the ride. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, let me know who else you want to see a video on, and I'll see you guys all in the next one. Peace out.